Welcome to the channel. Beyond the Edge, we're focused on breaking through some of these old ways that we've been working and utilizing technology in order to drive performance and to drive data-driven decisions within organizations. Today, we focus in on project controls and leveraging databases, centralized systems, AI, and different technology in order to truly be able to deliver on the projects or on the contracts that we've signed up for. Being able to centralize your data is the core, meaning if you have an ecosystem, a project controls tool, or you have multiple tools and this ecosystem is not synced together, then what you have is you have siloed data. When you have siloed data, you don't have the capability to rapidly understand what the data is telling you without pulling a report here, analyzing it, pulling a report here, analyzing it, bringing that together, and hopefully making the right decision. Let's think through the amount of data that a project controls manager, project control specialist, planning, risk, all of these functions that are leading organizations, especially in big EPC contracts. Data is king. So how do we get our data in a centralized location? There's a couple of ways that we can look at it. You can start as easy with creating SharePoint lists and being able to put all of your data into one area. You could categorize it by risk, by project controls, by vendor trackers, categorize it by labor hours, however you want to do it, but all of your data is in one searchable location. You can then connect that to a dashboard like Power BI, and it can start to give you the value or kind of give you a snapshot in time. You can also start to leverage some of these amazing AI agents. And what happens with an AI agent is you're using a large language model, you're using an Excel spreadsheet, and you're creating this workflow. And this workflow can either be a triggered workflow or it can be when a document is uploaded. There's a number of different workflows that can start. But what it's doing is it's taking your data and it's saying, what tool do I need to look at? What's the output that's required, and do I need to summarize this data and then provide a summary to that user, or produce a report? Maybe that's sending it automatically through email. So what you've done there is you've taken a data, you've analyzed this data, and you've submitted a report, all with a trigger of time. And therefore, you've eliminated the need to have maybe 3 to 4 hours of labor that could have had to have done that job. So that's one example about having an AI agent in project controls. Also, what you can do is you can start to connect your data sources together. So in your ecosystem, if you were to have some AI agents in the middle, and on the outside are your data sources, risk, schedule, vendor trackers, documentation, labor, cost control, quantity surveyor for field data coming in. And you start to bring in a level of AI into this ecosystem, into this database. You've now connected your data sources together. So you can now start to ask it questions immediately instead of getting on the phone or getting on Microsoft Teams or Slack and asking somebody, hey, what's going on with your schedule? You reported 5% behind. You can now go in and find that information without having to ask somebody to pull a report or to analyze a schedule. You can start to ask a question. Why is engineering 5% behind? And then the next follow-up question can be, how will this impact procurement and construction? Maybe even follow up with a next question that says, what other risks are categorized for engineering that could have an impact on top of this 5%? So now you take this 5% risk or this 5% delay, you're now associating other risks associated with the remaining work that needs to be completed in engineering and saying, there's a risk that I could be 10% late. What does that actually mean for my project? So we're going through these iterations. We have to understand what the data is telling us and make the best decision. Maybe we need additional resources in engineering to improve the quality control and get our revisions to the customer so that we can move to the next phase of the project and release purchase orders or release MTOs. That's the value add by centralizing your data. So as you start to connect your data sources together, it's giving you centralized data, it's giving you data-driven decisions. Let's take it a step further. Now we're starting to get into the cost control. My burn rate is X compared to my earned value or to my actual progress. And now if you understand your burn rate, you can see that you're either burning more or less hours than your plan, and then you can calculate this 5% behind is equating to a 100,000 or $1 million impact to my labor because we're behind schedule, we're over on burning our hours due to document review cycles, meaning you're not gaining the progress but you're burning more hours for that given task. And that's another scenario. Let's go into the risk process. So we started to talk through cost control, schedule, vendor trackers, productivity, um, cost. Whenever we start to look at our risk register, we can now start to ask questions about where we're currently at. So the AI system and the centralized data is learning our projects, it's learning our progress, it's learning the way that we execute projects. So therefore, when we look at our risk register and we start to add risks in there and mitigate risks, as it learns your projects, it can say there is a risk coming up and we need to look at a solution for it. And that way, we're getting out of this reactive phase and we're getting into a proactive phase that says, my productivity is for my vendor on my inch dia for piping is lower than what it was in previous projects. One, I need to find out what that issue is with the vendor. But two, how is that risk going to impact my project? Is that going to be a schedule risk or also a cost risk where I'm increasing the number of welders on my project so that I can maintain my baseline schedule and not chew through all the float that might be in my schedule? Again, our goal is to deliver on time and on budget, so we have to mitigate these risks as they come through our project. So with this type of system, it's intuitive, right? It's already thinking for you in advance. It's eliminating the need for a dedicated analyst on your project that is focused in and day out on like what needs to happen. If you have these type of systems and you implement AI into your project controls organization, it's going to give you the insight you need to make a decision, to make a data driven decision, not to make an emotional decision, because that's sometimes we're like, we got to fix it, we got to fix it. But the reality is we have to make data driven decisions. What does 5% behind mean? What does 10% behind mean? Is that pushing me into liquidated damages? What is that going to cost my project? Do I need to hire a quantity surveyor? Do I need to hire third-party inspectors? Like, oh well, I don't have a budget for that. That's $100,000 to send somebody out for 6 months. You do have it if you consider what the impact is for 4 weeks of delay on your project. If you have liquidated damages, that can be 250 to half a million dollars if you're back charged liquidated damages and now your revenue has reduced from 10 million now down to $9.5 million. So we have to consider sometimes we do have to take action that costs money in order to prevent risks from hitting our project. But we have to make the right decision at the right time. Leveraging our data is key. Centralizing our data with a layer of AI so that we can really interact and understand our data is going to bring value. This can be rapidly deployed, but it does bring capital, right? Capital needs to be developed into this solution but the value it's going to bring your organization and your teams is not for the short term, it's for the long term. Investments into the business aren't just for quick wins, right? They're for long-term growth. And if your business has year-on-year growth and your projects continually get more complicated and we're getting bigger projects, modules or facilities or large offshore capital projects, then we need a robust system to be in place so that we can keep up with the demand of these projects.